My story may seem a little absurd because not every student has an affair with a teacher for good grades. Would you tell me it's disgusting? Listen to my story first. But before I start, subscribe to this channel. There are many more interesting stories here. So, my name is Emma. I am a student at one of the modest liberal arts universities. I am now in my third year. This story happened to me last year. When I went to university, I even could not think that I will be able to go to such lengths for the sake of ratings. I finished my first year with good marks, and my parents were so happy about it that they decided to support me and give me an incentive to become the best in the group. My father promised that if I finished the next school year perfectly, he would buy me a car that I had long dreamed of. Wow! I was delighted with this offer. It was another incentive for me. I mentally prepared myself for the new school year, bragged about everything to my friends. They supported me and told me to show the class to my parents. I was happy, and all because I was confident in my abilities. First of all, I chose the specialty of my choice, so it was easy for me to study. In principle, all subjects were easy for me, as long as they were humanitarian. Since childhood, I do not like numbers and do not know how to handle them. To be honest, I also chose the procession so that there was no need to solve all sorts of problems. But life is full of surprises. On the first day of our sophomore year, our head teacher called us together and announced a new schedule for the next day. What? Higher mathematics? Are you serious? What the fuck do we need it for? We are humanitarians. The headman just shrugged. And I felt that this math would ruin my entire deal with my parents. Getting really angry, I ran to the office of our curator and burst in shouting about why the hell do we need math. It turns out that there was a meeting where all the teachers of the department got acquainted with the mathematician. I literally froze in the doorway. The curator gestured that I was finished and shooed me away. And then I realized that I basically ride on minibuses too, is not so bad because the car I now definitely do not see. I was nervous for the rest of the day, thinking only of my moment of shame. The next morning, I didn't even want to go to school, but I had to. I walked into the office and didn't even look up from the floor or in the direction of the teacher. First, he introduced himself. My name is Stan Williams. I am your new teacher. You may be surprised what I do in your department and why the hell do you need my mathematics, but I will tell you right away. It is mathematics that surrounds us every day, and it is necessary in any sphere, he said, looking askance in my direction. It's obvious to a fool that it was a rock in my garden. Then the teacher gave a short lecture on higher mathematics, its history, need and difference from the usual one that is taught in secondary schools. While he was talking about numbers, my classmate Gladys poked me in the side and whispered in my ear what a beautiful mathematician. I grimaced. Personally, I only associated with him, as well as with his subject, saying goodbye to my car. And Gladys kept saying, "No, look at him. He's such a good-looking guy. Young, not like us, of course, but young, fit, with a beautiful smile and neat. How can you not notice this? He must have someone," she said. I just pulled her back and told her to stop talking. At this moment, Stan Williams came up to us and made a remark for the behavior of only me. What? What the hell? Why me? I shouted out of resentment. And for that, he kicked me out of class. Since then, every pair of maths has been like a test for me, and Gladys seemed to be obsessed with the subject. She talked about him all the time, and even tried to ask him out a couple of times. When she told me about it, I called her crazy. And she said we were old enough to decide who we were going to have a romantic relationship with. In the meantime, a couple of months had passed, and my perfect grades were being ruined by C's and D's in math. I lost my patience when Stan Williams once again kicked me out of the office for allegedly bad behavior. I decided to stay after school and talk to him. I wasn't going to give up so easily. After waiting for the end of the session, I closed the door, went to the teacher, and asked a direct question about why was he so picky with me. It's not fair. Are you taking revenge on me for the time at your meeting when I called your subject unnecessary? Is that why you're dropping my grades? The teacher only laughed in response. And he said that if I wanted a good meal, I should agree to have dinner with him. What? Are you out of your mind? Is this harassment? I'll sue you, okay? I shouted and left, slamming the door. Gladys was waiting for me in the schoolyard. She saw my furious look and immediately asked what was wrong. After that, she told me to have dinner with him. I know you don't like him, but you won't lose anything if you eat with him, she said. Perhaps there was some meaning in her words. I texted him that I agreed to tomorrow at 19 o'clock. To be honest, I was a little nervous all day. In the late afternoon, I put on my favorite black dress and he picked me up and we went to a restaurant. At first, I didn't know how to behave. We became so awkward. My teacher and I were having dinner together. What a shame. If someone finds out, then the gossip will not wash away. Stan Williams' voice distracted me from my thoughts. He started asking me about my family, hobbies. I didn't want to answer, but I had to at least try to be polite. Then our conversation gradually started on its own. It turns out that he was born in a poor family and earned his own education. He also works in parallel with another job in the evenings to send money to his parents. I respected him after these words. My attitude to the topic at that moment changed a little. After that dinner, my grades changed too. He gave me more and more 5s for almost nothing. Of course, this has been noticed by others, especially Gladys. She kept asking me what was going on between us. But nothing happened. We just had dinner, and that's it. 5 days later, he invited me to dinner again, then another and another. We began to learn more about each other, so there were feelings, and we started dating. Rumors about our relationship spread all over the university. Gladys was most happy for us. My curator and the rector never called us to the carpet with the demand to stop this ridiculous affair. But it only added fire to our relationship. I didn't know anything about mathematics, but my grades were excellent, as was my relationship with Stan. A year later, my father, as promised, gave the car. But not only for good relations. It was a gift for our wedding. Hi, I'm Liz. Once in social networks, one adult man wrote me. At the time, I didn't have a lot of friends and decided to talk to him. Of course, there were thoughts, maybe this is some kind of maniac or pervert? But it wasn't what I thought, and I want to tell you this story. As long as I remember myself, my mother and I have lived alone. I never even asked where my father was or who he was. No, I did ask once, and regret about it. Your father died a long time ago. Don't ask why or how, said Mother. I can't say that it hurt me to hear about it because he was a stranger to me. However, pain stays at heart. Deep inside, there was a hope that he was alive and that one day I would meet him. I grew up a difficult teenager. My mother worked as a waitress in a local bar, and on weekends she worked as a cleaner in a business center. I really appreciated her work and effort. I clearly understood that she worked 2 jobs for me to give at least some education. Yes, I went to city school. My academic performance was not perfect except literature. I liked to read and write. Secretly to my mother, I attended poetry nights at that bar where she worked, but it was on weekends. And I was also a good mask myself, acting as an anonymous person. I admit that the audience loved my work. I didn't have any friends in high school. It must have been weird for people around me to hang out with a girl like me. I listened to rock, wore black, and preferred to eat alone. Mrs. Maurice, our school principal, often called my mother to school because of my bad behavior. Just hit Kevin. He was looking at me, and I hate being stared at. He's fat and probably didn't feel nothing, I mumbled again. My mother apologized to the director, promising that this would not happen again. Then she grabbed my arm and led me away from the school. It was easy to spot my other anger. After we got in the car, she took out a cigarette and lit it without saying a word. Her style. She doesn't make a scene behind the wheel for safety reasons, but as soon as we stepped inside the house, she started. I do everything for you, but you! Will there be a day when you don't get into something? I stood with my head down. You're just like your father! She shouted out and then held her breath. She was afraid of her own voice, And all because it was the first time she had used the memory about him to reproach me. I was hurt by the fact that I had no way of knowing even his name. After closing myself in my room, I opened my laptop and got a message on MySpace. Someone with Nick JJ sent a friend request. I hesitated. I did not like new friendships, but that night I wanted to do something unusual for myself. So the conversation starts. It turned out that JJ also likes art. He is a musician who writes lyrics and music himself. We immediately found a common language. I saw his concerts, and I didn't mind that he was older than me. About a month later, we couldn't live a day without writing. With each conversation, I got more used to it. No, we didn't see each other, but we understood each other so well. I could share the most intimate things with him. He always listened, advised. I sent him my sketches of my works, and he sent me his tracks. We could spend hours arguing about something. It was cool. A month later, I asked him to meet me, invited him to my poetry night. JJ didn't look like he is the one who is shy, but he didn't give me a specific answer to my offer of a meeting. I was a little upset and took it personally, but then he wrote that he would definitely come. I woke up early that day, and I spent the whole day choosing the right look in my wardrobe. My mother comes into the room. I could see from her face that I did something bad again. "What is it this time?" "Are you communicating with someone online? Inviting him to meet you at a bar for poetry night that I didn't even know about? How do you know he's not a maniac?" She was mad. Of course, I was angry. She was reading my personal messages. We had a conflict. "You're talking with the wrong person! Hey!" she called after me. I got dressed, picked up my laptop, and went to the cafe. The mood was bad, but I was looking forward to a pleasant, long-awaited meeting. Jay came in after my performance. He also looked concerned. I went to him. It didn't turn out the way I thought. "You're doing great," he said, then hugged me. I didn't understand why he was acting so strange. Then my mother appeared in the doorway. I lashed out at her, yelling at her to stay out of my life. But my mother said she wouldn't let him ruin my life. "To whom?" "He's your father," she said and pointed at Jay. "What the hell?" "He's dead," I thought. So I've been talking to my own father all this time? Did he know and keep quiet? I felt betrayed. These two have drawn me into their relationship. How unfair. A week has passed. I still haven't spoken to him or her. My mother was apologizing, saying she didn't want to involve me. Jay, my father, never wrote to me again. I must admit I missed communicating with him because no one understood me so well. When he found out I was pregnant, Jay was afraid of it. He was a musician and didn't want to problem himself with responsibilities. My mother suddenly began the conversation sitting at dinner. She told me about her life before me. Suddenly I saw her in another way. Strong. My mother became a model for me. I apologized for our misunderstanding. A few days later, I texted JJ saying I wasn't mad at him, even though I was communicating with a person who pretended to be somebody else. It was great for me to communicate with someone like that. It changed something inside me. He only wrote, "I'm sorry for everything." And then life returned to its normal course. I stopped wearing black, and I think now I have friends.